I am so excited about today's episode. I've labeled it A Good Woman is Not So Hard to Find. And that is because I'm looking at all of you, Christian women out there who are doing their best to follow God and do what is right. And this is going to be hopefully your little cheer to keep doing what you're doing, and even maybe a nudge to get back on track if you're sliding just a little bit. I know how easy that is to do. So there's absolutely no throwing stones with me, as you know. I don't claim to have it all together. I just want to walk with you, encourage you, help you, just come alongside you, and we'll get through this together. Hey, it's Amber, wife, mother, type A child of God. Here are little things we look at everyday issues from a biblical perspective with one simple goal: to know and love God more. Thanks for listening. So we are starting a 4-part series. We're in the book of May. Now, I know, I just want to warn you, do not turn this off, okay? Because I get it. So if you had said to me even, 5 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, hey, how do you feel about doing a study on the Proverbs 31 woman? I would have slapped you. I don't want to do a study on the Proverbs 31 woman. That's totally intimidating. Why would we do a study on the Proverbs 31 woman? She's got it all together. I do not. Thanks, but no thanks. I do not need to feel worse about myself than I do. Okay. Anything that is in the Bible is there for our teaching and encouraging. So I want you to know right off the bat, that is not what this is. This is going to be your little nudge. This is going to be your little, hey, you're not doing it all wrong. Like, we're in this and it's okay. Like, let's just get the ships going in the right direction. Okay. So we're going to start. I'm going to give you just a tiny tiny bit of background on this proverb. And then we are going to just break down one little section of it today. And that is on being a good woman. Okay. So first, right off the bat, so there's an epilogue. It's only 22 verses in the chapter Proverbs 31, and it is a acrostic poem, which means that each of the letters of the Hebrew alphabet is at the beginning of couplets. And I don't know anything about this, so I'm not going to try to teach it to you. It's just meaning that it is written as a poetry, and it's got a little form to it. And I was in literature, creative writing major in college. And so I had to do a whole bunch of poetry forms. If you don't know what that is, a lot of poetry is written with a basic scheme in mind. So you have a certain rhyme, you have so many syllables. So I did seriously several semesters of poetry where we did forms. And I actually did pretty well writing in forms. But so that is just to say that the author of the Proverbs 31 epilogue put a little timing into this, and it is probably far more beautiful in Hebrew than it is in English, but we're not going to let that get us down for those of us who do not know Hebrew. If you know somebody who knows Hebrew, you can go and give them a high five and tell them to enjoy this. But for the rest of us, we are just going to study it in English and get out of it what we can. So it starts by saying, a wife of noble character, who can find? Well, let me tell you, a lot of men find a wife of noble character. That's who. What is noble? Well, noble is to actually act in such a way that is high moral principles and moral goodness or ideals in her character. So meaning she is not somebody who's just chasing after everything in the world. She is not taking shortcuts to get the things she wants to get. Every time I say that, I think of Jezebel, who will scheme to get her way, or Herodias, King Herod's wife, when she wanted John the Baptist killed, and she schemed to get what she wanted anyway. A wife of noble character is just the opposite. She's not scheming to get her way. She's not conniving. She's not malicious. She's not slandering. She's got principles that she's standing on. She has her morals and her principles as established by the word of God. And that is how she is acting And that is what is guiding her life. Those are the principles that she has, not because the world looks at them and says, hey, look at how great you're doing, but because God looks at her and says, I see you and I get it. You are living in such a way that you are honoring me. You are putting me first, and I see you and I respect you and I love you for doing that. And so that is what we're after as we look at this as this proverb. Now, there's a commentary that's by J. Sidlow Baxter. It's called Explore the Book, and it is huge. And I have used this because I actually like how Baxter breaks this poem down. He breaks it down into 4 different categories. And today we're just going to look at the first category, which is she is a good woman. And Baxter breaks this into 3 different parts of this poem that show that the Proverbs 31 wife is a good woman. Now, first of all, she's a good woman because she works diligently. So to work diligently means to work eagerly. So she's very happy, content to work. She's not lazy. She's not, someone who you have to spur on, like, get out of bed, quit eating those bonbons. The kids are waiting. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I stayed at home for many years. I used to, I shouldn't say many years, for 5 years. And when people would ask me what I was doing, I would say, I'm just eating my bonbons. That's all I do as a stay-at-home mom. Anyway, she works diligently, happily, eagerly. She is not a grump. She's not someone who is prone to just, laying on the couch and scrolling and hoping that everything gets done. That is not the good woman as described in Proverbs 31. So what are the verses that prove this? Verse 13 says, she selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. Again, desiring to do something. Verse 15, she gets up while it is still night. She provides food for her family and portions for her female servants. She's not afraid of, getting up while it's still dark out or staying up later than everybody else. How many times have you as a mother done that? Even if it's not about, getting the clothes ready or making the food. Sometimes moms, we're just up doing that because we're praying for somebody. And this, by the way, I know this whole proverb is talking to wives of noble character. And there's a lot of ways that we're going to see how she takes care of her family and her servant girls and that type of thing. But single women can get just as much out of this by doing these same things. And then verse 19, in her hand, she holds the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. I do not sew. I do not know anything about sewing. This is not my verse to explain to you about thread and making anything, except to say this. In these verses, what we see is she is providing. She is making sure the people in her care have everything that they need. She's getting up early. She's staying up late. She's selecting different fabrics to make sure that they have what they need. For those of us who don't sew, for those of us who don't, we're not Betsy Homemaker, it's just saying we make sure that our kids, our family, whoever's under our care, they have what they need. Sometimes that is, by the way, if you're taking care of, your parents or if you're watching after an elderly neighbor, it's just checking in with them to make sure they have their groceries and they have what they need. It's the same concept that she is working diligently. She's keeping her eyes open. And one thing I just want to point out is part of working diligently, honestly, is the attitude with which we work. So it is easy enough to be the one who's getting up early, staying up late, who's making sure everybody has what they need. And while there is a place to make sure the people around you understand and appreciate what you are doing, I'm not going to say that I haven't at times gone, guys, this stuff doesn't magically appear. There are times to make sure that your family appreciates what they have. But, by and large, we work as for the Lord. We do what we do because God has graciously gifted us this place in our life. And it's not about, making sure everybody notices what we do all the time and how we get it done and any of that. There will be a time at the end of the book of Proverbs, at the end of this poem, that we see that, the children rise up and call her blessed. But, a lot of times that doesn't happen for many, many, many years. Being the wife and the mother, for those of us who are, is a lot like planting seeds. And the harvest comes not at the end of the growing season, but after many, 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 many years. And even as my kids have, been getting married, I'm seeing a little bit of that, but my children don't have children of their own yet. And I just remember how many things started to make sense to me after I started having kids, after I was independent. Before that, you think that you understand so much. And then once it's your turn, you go, oh man, this is a whole bigger deal than I realized. And that's just how it is for all of us. So I don't think it's important that our family necessarily understands the work that we put into them. In fact, in some ways, the highest mastery of this is making it look easy when no one understands how much work you put in behind the scenes. I've been having my family over. 2 of my children are married. One is, by the time this airs, will be living in a different state, and this won't be an option for them anymore to come over because they'll be too far away to do it every Sunday. But I've been trying to make meals on Sundays and have my family over and just make sure that we are all on the same page. And then we read just one chapter of the Bible. I pick something out that has something that we can really dig in, and it has a message that they can carry with them for the rest of the week. And, preparing it is not, a huge chore for me at all. In fact, I love as I'm preparing, and that is from the minute I'm going to the store to buy the things, the ingredients for the meal that I'm making. And while I'm making the meal, I'm either worshiping or I'm praying, and I'm praying for our time together and for open hearts, and that God really works in my children's lives. And it's a very sweet time that I get to put into a dinner that it has been extremely just meaningful for myself, for my husband, to get together with our kids. And so, I think that's the flex. If we can do some of these things and not let anybody know the amount of work that we're putting in, but just having everybody come together and really enjoy what is put before them and realize it's for a season, and thank the Lord for it for any time that we get. Okay, the next category of being a good woman is she behaves uprightly. So verse 25 says, she is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. Okay, so what is strength? I love this definition of strength. Strength is the capacity to withstand great force or pressure. You are not going to fall apart when the hard days come. When the hard days come, you are going to be like that house that's built on the rock. And when the rain falls and the storm comes, you will not be swept away because you know your foundation is Jesus. So all the little things that once upon a time would steal your emotions, they would distract you from everything. Those things no longer happen. You are clothed with strength and dignity. Dignity is being worthy of honor and respect. You live in such a way that when the chaos comes, you can rise above it. You are able to say, you know what? I expect this. It's not a big deal. So, yep, that person did get sick. Yep, this person has to have surgery. Yep, that diagnosis came. Yep, they lost their job. Yep, this didn't go as planned. Yep, we didn't get the house. Yep, because that's life in a sinful world. And that just means that God has something else for us because we know that He is walking with us and we are constantly in prayer with him. So you know what? If this didn't turn out, then it didn't turn out. So be it. Who cares? We're moving on to the next thing. Life is way too short. We've got way too much to do. And this is not going to steal our joy. Strength and dignity, no matter what's happening, we're going to let it. I have been more and more aware too, keenly aware of the fact that anger is pretty much just annoyance. And as I've studied it more and taught about it more, especially as I go to different churches and I talk to women about, what is anger? And it's just being annoyed with people and realizing how petty that is and how much of our day we can ruin if we let petty little things make us angry. And mostly it's because somebody isn't doing something our way. Think about that. Think about how crazy that is. So we are angry at the person at the grocery store because they're taking too long to check out. Or we are angry at the person in our house who doesn't put the dishes away in the time frame that we thought that they should. Or we are angry about the person at church who said they were going to do this, but didn't do it the way that we thought it should be done and instead did it a totally different way. All the little silly, frivolous ways that we waste our emotions on stuff that doesn't matter is just insanity. And so to behave uprightly is to clothe yourself with this strength and dignity, able to withstand things and get through them without losing your mind and driving everybody else stark raving mad. That is what it's about. And I think that this gets so much easier as we get older. And I think there's a tipping point where we maybe go back the other way again. But again, when you have small kids and things seem like they're so crazy and you can't control what they're going to say or do, and you're constantly, I remember after my fourth was born, I would tell people, I think I lose weight from like just turning my head all day. I'm constantly trying to figure out where all my kids are and what they're doing. That's all I'm doing. So those days, it can feel so crazy. You feel like everything is just chaos so much of the time, and you never feel like you get a good night's sleep. And then progressively, as the kids get older and older and older, then you realize that you can't control, how they act or where they go or the choices they make. And eventually you get to this point of just putting it all in God's hands and just saying, let me honor you in the way that I behave today, in the way that I respond to everything that goes on, good, bad, or ugly, because at the end of the day, so many people are watching, and I just want them to see in me a total dependency on you, God. That's all I want. And that's the strength and dignity I put on, is just knowing people know that I'm a Christian. And if I'm a Christian, I want to act in such a way that I'm just pointing to God, even when things are completely and totally out of my control, even when they are not what I was hoping for at all. I just want to say, well, Lord, here I am, and let me honor you, and let me find the way to glorify you in this situation. What does that mean? It means that if I can't get my way, there's ideal, right? And then there's, this isn't going to be ideal. This is going to be messy. So let me just be a source of encouragement, strength, and let me keep pointing people to you, Lord. And then all the rest of the messiness, the craziness, the chaos, I'm just going to let you take care of that, Lord. I'm going to completely hand it over to you. I just want to honor and glorify you. All right. Then the last section of this good woman portion, as given to us by J. Sidlow Baxter, is that she lives prudently. Now, to live prudently means to look towards the future. So in the book of Proverbs, it talks about how a lazy son will sleep during the harvest. So that is someone who has no concept of looking for the future at all. They don't care. So what? So the vegetables are ripe. So the fruit trees need to be picked. Who cares? I'm just going to sleep. I'm not going to worry about it. A woman who lives prudently is looking for the future. Now, the verses that Baxter uses for this section is verse 16. She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. Planting a vineyard is looking towards the future. So she can see that something potentially could have value down the line. This goes for our marriage, investing in our marriage. When you invest day after day after day in your marriage, and let me just say, that is not just in the time spent. That is the prayers that you pray for your spouse over and over and over. Oh, so many prayers. And I hope if you're not praying for your spouse right now, please start praying for that person. Pray that he is a godly man. Pray that he does not fall into temptation. Pray that he seeks the Lord and he guides his family in ways that will honor God. Pray that he's a good example to your children and to your neighborhood and to the people he works with. So many prayers. Pray that he is a man of honesty and integrity. Pray that he stands up under temptation. Pray for him to have strength of body and mind and spirit. So many prayers. Start with prayer. If you're not praying right now for your spouse, that is one of the best investments in your future. And pray the same for your children. Always, constantly praying for them with their walk with God, for sure. And that God keeps them from temptation, that they find godly Christian friends, that they are godly Christian friends, so that they can, help other people along on the path, on that narrow road that we're walking on. But so much of planting a vineyard, looking at a field, man, you are seeing something's potential that is years down the road. And that is so much a part of being a good Christian mom, is telling your children the potential that you see in them, that is the potential to do amazing things in God's kingdom. Never tire, never, ever, ever tire of building your children, your husband, and everybody around you up. The world will do its best to tear them down. Satan will do its best to tear them down. Their own sinful nature will tear them down continually, constantly. Our jobs as these women who are living prudently with the goal of living for the future, preparing for the future, we build up. Where the world tears down, we build up. We see the potential that our children and our spouse cannot see in themselves, and we come alongside them, we build them up. That is what we are masters at doing. And if you do that, let me tell you, your children will exceed what you think that they can do. Even as you are telling them, I had one of my children struggled in school. I've talked about this before, and I'm not going to go into the story because it's not my story. But one of my children struggled in school, and I told this child over and over and over, you are a genius. You just have to find your thing. And this child would say to me, you are my mom. That's what you're supposed to say. And I would say, I don't care if I'm your mom. Even if I wasn't your mom, I would still tell you the same thing. You're a genius. The problem is schools only measure how you read and write and spit out answers. And that's not you. You are I'm going to figure it out. I'm a hands-on, I can make things work type of person. And when you find what you're going to do, you are going to far exceed what you could be taught in a school. And that's exactly what has happened. And this child of mine has gone on to do more, so much more. And this child is a genius in their own way. And that's our job, is to tell our children over and over and over, man, God created you with good stuff. Find your spiritual gifts. Find the talents and abilities that he has put on you and go far. Do the most you can with them. Earn the most money that you can and use it in God's kingdom. Do the most in God's kingdom that you can to bring the most people to know Jesus. Do the most. Don't settle for doing the least and then going to bed at night and feeling like, well, I did the least today and I still got paid. No, that's not who we are. All right, verse 22, she makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. That's just to say that she has everything she needs. Like she's set and she knows it. What do you actually need at the end of the day? Man, very little. If you live long enough to go to a nursing home where you will end your life, it's a tiny little room and so little fits in it. And so when we live for the future, knowing that we need so little, we're not storing up a ton of stuff materialistically here on earth. It's just not who we are. We don't care because that stuff will all be gone someday. So I don't care about getting, decorations for every season. I decorate for nothing but Christmas, and that by force. So when I was pregnant with my fourth, I had pneumonia very bad and was very, very sick. And my mother that year told me, Amber, you have to put a Christmas tree up. And I said, Mom, you know what? It's going to be Christmas, whether there's a Christmas tree at the Swenson house or not. She said, Amber, please put the Christmas tree up for the other 3 children. You can't pretend like it's not Christmas. You have 3 other children. They still want to celebrate Christmas. So Steve and I put a Christmas tree up. We put nothing on the Christmas tree that year. And my kids made little paper decorations, and chains and stuff that were thrown away afterwards. And you know what? It was still Christmas and we had a Christmas tree up. So anyway, the point being, I don't care about decorating for every season, all that stuff. I'm looking for the future. What I want in my house is an abundance of love. I want every person that walks through my door to feel that they are loved, seen, heard, and known. End of story, done. And that means that I am going to set food in front of them. As you know, if you have listened to me at all before this, I am not a great cook, but I try. And especially when my family comes over on Sundays, I really do try. I put effort into making something that is edible. My husband chips in. He makes as much of the food as I do, but I want something for them to eat. I want something for them to drink. They're going to have my undivided attention. We probably are going to have the Bible open. Do we have a tablecloth on our table? Absolutely not. Do I have a whole ton of napkins that are from all different events that we use all the time? Yes, I do. We had 80th birthday party napkins the last time everybody came over. We have baby shower napkins and wedding shower napkins and graduation napkins and Christmas napkins and you name it napkins, and nobody cares. Not at all. In fact, I did start using the real dishes again. For a while there, I was using all paper. And then I decided that I was actually going to care enough about my family that I would do the dishes after them. So verse 24, she makes linen garments and sells them and supplies the merchants with sashes. Look, that is just to say she does her part. She knows what her family needs. She gets done what needs to be done to make sure everybody has what they need. She uses her gifts, whatever they are, to profit her family, to profit her household. She's just at work and constantly thinking of the state of her family and the people around her. And I can't help but think, especially in this last part, living prudently, the most important thing that we are doing is teaching our children, our spouses, everyone around us, this life is very temporary. And prepare your children for your death. Prepare your children for their death. Let death be a part of the conversation. We know we are not going to get out of this life alive. Our destiny is to die and to wake up in eternity. And that is either with the Lord or without him. And so if we are going to live prudently, we need to be making sure the people around us know the future is either going to be in heaven or hell. And there's no time to put off your faith walk. Your faith journey is too important to put it on the back burner and figure you'll get to it someday. That's not a good way to live. That's not wise. Because the fact is, we are not guaranteed tomorrow. God never, ever promises us a long life. He never says we'll have a life free from sorrow. He never says that your spouse will, live with you into old age or that all your children. In fact, in the Bible, we see women who have lost children. We see women who have I shouldn't say lost, whose husbands have died. And so, you know what? We need to live in such a way that we prepare our families for a time when we will not be here, when they will face death, so that they know that's a part of life. Now, hopefully I didn't bum you out too much. That wasn't the plan, but the plan is to really, like I said, come alongside you and say, what can we learn from this poem in the Proverbs? What will this have us doing, or how will we live differently? So I have just a couple of questions that I want you to ponder until we come back next week. So here they are. How can you improve your attitude towards serving the Lord and or his people? So if we're going to work diligently, part of that is the attitude, right? So is there some way that you need to tweak your attitude just a little bit? Think about the things you complain about with your spouse and or your children. What can you tweak? What godly goals do you have? What areas of your life need refining to behave more uprightly, more morally, more nobly? What one thing do you maybe need to quit doing, or what thing do you need to add in order to live more uprightly? Who do you need to start praying for or investing in? Look at your life. We all have people. Who today are you going to start praying for? And or texting, and or inviting over, and or asking how you can get involved in their life, because you're not feeling a whole lot of comfort with where they're at right now. How can you get in the Bible every day? If that's been a struggle for you, how are you going to change that? And last, what do you need to do to jumpstart your worship life? So if you're not thrilled with where you go to church, what are you going to do to change that? What online church are you going to plug into? Or how do you need to get out of your comfort zone to drive to a church a little ways away? Or how do you get involved in your church in order to make it more of the place that you would want to go? Those are the questions that I want you to ponder this week. Next week, we'll come back for more on Proverbs 31. Until then, this has been Little Things, because in God's kingdom, the little things are the big things.